Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another deck report. So, this is season 6, week number 1, and I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. As opposed to doing just like 1 or 2 reports per weekend, I'm going to do my experimental deck reports throughout the week, and I'm going to be doing my tournament deck reports throughout the weekend. The main reason for this is there are so many decks I want to showcase you guys and I want to cover on this channel. Most of them are going to be post Doom of Dimensions, but if I drag out each deck report, at least the experimental ones, throughout each week, it might get to a point where it's going to be a little bit too late to show you the deck strategy that I have been working with. Another thing to note is we're at the very beginning of the format. We still not sure what all the rogue decks and strategies are going to look like in this upcoming format moving forward. There are some decks that are pretty much slated to be top tier contenders this format, like for example Yummy and maybe Mitsurugi alongside, and maybe Lunalight, like alongside a few other decks. But there are so many decks that can do well this upcoming format, and I kind of want to get all the experimentation decks out of the way. That way you guys, the players who are getting ready for Doom of Dimensions, already have something to work with. So today's topic is going to be True Draco. This profile that you're seeing on the screen, this is from a video I did 2 years ago in this channel. I will post that video in the description. It's TLDR, I basically talked about how True Dracos were viable as a strategy back in 2023. There are so many cool engines that just work alongside True Draco, and this is one of them. This is the Sky Striker card, version with the Diabell Star cards. This is a version that plays Monarchs. Reminder that Monarchs did get new support in Duelist Advance, and True Dracos work really well with the theme. They have a 25,000 monster, and this deck really doesn't need its extra deck in order to function. Most of the True Draco monsters are just like the main boss monsters themselves. This is a K9 version. K9 is also really good with True Dracos because they have their own continuous spell that can add to their engine. And True Dracos do have a couple of level 5 monsters, so they can work well alongside Joko. They can be tribute fodder for Masterpiece or their bigger True Draco monsters. Noroi being able to get hand knowledge is also really good because it means that you can pretty much craft your M board in a way that is favorable for you. This deck is still in experimentation phase though. I still haven't figured out like a good list with this deck that I still want yet. And there's the Regenesis version. I built this version right before the ban list happened, but like it's pretty straightforward what you want to do with this deck. True Draco Fighter is 2500 attack, so it works with the Regenesis monsters. Also, Eldlich the Golden Lord is 2500 attack, and you're probably wondering what is Golden Lord doing here in True Dracos? So, if you look at the first build of the deck, well, this one isn't. Well, this one doesn't have it. There was a Striker version that I built that did have Golden Lord. I want to talk about Golden Lord for a second. So the thing about Golden Lord is that, and I guess I'll show you replay for example. The Golden Lord engine, it doesn't have to be specifically Delta Invitation, but at least the one with Delta Invitation provides really good tribute fodder for your True Draco monsters. Also, Eldlich the Golden Lord itself has a lot of synergy with True Dracos because Golden Lord itself is just a really big monster that can just pummel through your opponent. It is not an extra deck monster, so it doesn't like really need to work with the extra deck. This version of the deck is playing Delta Invitation, which means we are playing the Fallen Angel. And this engine is really cool in the Regenesis version, because not only does it give you Varudras, the final bringer of end times, which is a monster, an Omni-Negate, it also gives you a continuous spell to tribute for your True Dracos. In this combo, we use Flying Mary, the Wandering Ghost ship, and at the end of the combo, you end on this card in the Stone Trap card zone, which means that you can use this card as your fodder for your True Draco monsters. Let's go back to the build. That, in tandem of Golden Lord being 2500 attack, means that you can use this for every Regenesis. You can add this to your hand, which means you can summon Regenesis Archfiend, or you can summon this to your field, which makes it so you can summon the other Regenesis. Another really cool trick involving Golden Lord is that Golden Lord can send the True Draco spell and traps to summon itself from the graveyard, or add itself back, and it will trigger the True Draco spell and traps to pop a card after this card resolves in the graveyard. So this is essentially is a True Draco from the graveyard, if you think about it that way. I think if you can play any True Draco build that can play Eldlich, you should play Eldlich. This is a really cool tech for this deck. This also turns off your floodgates if you have specific floodgates on board that you just want to get rid of. Alright, so this is the last build of the deck, and you notice that I'm also playing Golden Lord here. This is the Dogmatika Branded version. The first thing I want to say is this is not my first time playing with the Branded engine in this deck, but if you think about it, this engine makes a lot of sense in True Draco. Branded Fusion just sends Golden Lord to the graveyard, similar to you do with Delta Invitation, which means that True Draco, the Eldlich monster can just be summoned from the graveyard, and it's just more board presence against your opponent. By playing the Branded engine, you get access to Titaniclad. And Titaniclad is really cool because Titaniclad can access your Dogmatika monsters. And your Dogmatika monsters also make sense in the True Draco deck because they're just stun monsters that just work well with the theme. And not only that, like, you don't, outside of the Branded engine, you really don't need your extra deck that much. So extra deck locking you with the Dogmatika cards really doesn't matter a lot in this deck. Remember, your win condition is Masterpiece and the other True Draco monsters. So after you resolve Dogmatika Ecclesia and Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis, the Thunderous, or the Thunderbolt, as it is now in the TCG, really just makes sense in this deck. Let's talk about Thunderbolt real quick. This card is also debuting in Doom of Dimensions. And this card is really, really cool because the way this card works, this is essentially either a hand trap or a board breaker against your opponent. And you will see replays with this card very soon. But yeah, this can enable you Dogmatika Punishment or Dogmatika Beast, which you can use in the later turns to just reborn stuff like Mirror Jade or monsters that you used with Super Polymerization. But yeah, you also have the True Draco Standoff, another new card in Doom. This is a really good consistency card for the deck. You have the True Draco Overlord, which I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I really don't like the fact that it requires 3 tributes. I also don't like the fact that it doesn't have protection for itself like Masterpiece. And maybe you might be thinking, maybe giving it protection and a monster negate would have been a little bit too strong, but just look at Luna Light Dancer. I think that card's a lot worse. I mean, when I say worse, I mean worse to deal with. I mean, that card is a lot better. But yeah, that's on topic. Let me know if you want to see like a specific build of True Dracos, like as a tournament deck reporting in the future. I really do think True Dracos have a lot to work with. I really like the theme. Now, what is my favorite build of True Draco? I think this is my favorite build. And as I like to do with other experimental deck reports, I'm gonna showcase you replays. So, this is a replay against Branded, and we are not going first. We lost the die roll. Full loss is actually going to be very helpful here, but I'm gonna showcase you just the really cool things you can do with this deck. So, Branded did get Branded Fusion back to 2, which means that strategy is a lot more viable now. So now you're seeing Branded doing Branded things. They're trying to set up for Branded Fusion on our turn, which is more than fair. So now we drop a turn. If you look at our hand is really good against the Branded deck. Not only do we have Super Polymerization, we also have the True Draco standoff to add Masterpiece, but more than that, we also have spell card Soul Exchange. I want to talk about this card real quick. So I think this card is really good in True Draco, as well as other tribute summon strategies. The first thing to talk about this card is the tribute summon from this card is in a tribute summon in itself, so it does not take your actual tribute summon for the turn. This is really, really strong. The other thing about this card is this affects the player. It does not affect the monster that you're going to be tributing. So it's essentially a game mechanic card, which means against opposing Masterpiece, against Luna like Liger Dancer, against like cards like those, this card can just get rid of them. And it is a normal spell card, so it is searchable by triple tactic thrust, which we are playing 3 of in this deck. So yeah, like when it comes to True Dracos, there's little to no fear of going second with this deck with actual breakers. The real reason you would be afraid of going second with a breakers type strategy is if your opponent plays specific floodgates, they just out your strategy whenever you're trying to break the board. True Draco is not like that. True Draco is a strategy that likes to go second, but it's almost impervious to almost every floodgate like that we have in the game. Like True Draco historically was known as the floodgate deck. So floodgates against True Dracos are just little to no issue. However, the pure True Draco in its purest form is not strong enough to break boards anymore. You really do need other engines for it to work. That's why you see like stuff like Nadir Servant Polymerization, you see like the Branded Fusion engine. Now, let's go and show the replay. We activate True Draco, Draco Standoff, that adds Masterpiece. We now activate Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix. And we're only placing this card on the field to see if your opponent wants to interact with it. Now we're going to activate spell card Soul Exchange. This card is going to resolve. We're going to tribute 2 monsters and we're going to summon Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. And you notice how we immediately tributed over the Grand Wignall. So now the Disciples is going to trigger, and that's going to pop the Fusion Duplication. They're going to flip Fusion Duplication. They're going to banish Branded Fusion. You can say this is a misplay. I should have popped Guiding Quem with Masterpiece, because Guiding Quem will get her effect to summon another monster after this resolves. But yeah, I digress. They're going to summon. They're going to summon Lubellion. They're going to trigger the Lubellion. They're going to trigger the Blazing Cartesia. Well, the Guiding Quem. Quem is going to bring back Blazing Cartesia. They're going to add Branded Red. Or Alibur, yeah. They're bringing that back. They're putting back Albas. Now they summon Mirror Jade. And we're not afraid of this Mirror Jade. Masterpiece is unaffected. Not only that, it's like we pretty much know almost everything in their hand. So there's little to no fear to OTK with this deck. So we're going to tribute the Apocalypse. Apocalypse is going to summon the Ignis Heat. And we're going to Apocalypse to pop here. They're going to trigger Mirror Jade. They can only get rid of Ignis Heat. We're going to use the Ignis Heat's effect, and that's going to place a Heritage on the board. And Mirror Jade has the Graveyard effect, but again, we don't care about that. That's not gonna matter anytime soon. Now we're going to do Heritage effect to draw cards. Since True Draco Apocalypse and True Draco Disciples got sent to the graveyard, this is going to draw us 2 cards. There are many instances where we're going to draw 2 or draw 3 with this card. And this is one of the reasons True Draco is really good going second as a strategy. These cards just apply a bit too much pressure on your opponent if they end up resolving. So we drew into another Ignis Heat, and now we're going to use Super Poly. We could have discarded one of the Nadir Servants instead of the Heritage, but you know, it won't matter. We're going to summon Garura. We're going to use the Heritage to extra tribute summon, and we tribute summon for Ignis Heat. And that's OTK. The Garura does extra damage. Now you're probably wondering, what can we do with this Nadir Servant, right? Well, yeah, you can Nadir Servant, send that, add Ecclesia, use the Ecclesia to special, then use Ecclesia to add the Fleur-de-Lis. We control Garura, so we can special the Fleur-de-Lis. And you know, this is just beyond game. Now, this is another replay. This is against a friend of mine, Manny. You're probably gonna see other future replays with him, same way you did with Vintage Hero back in Duelist Advanced format. So again, we're not going first, and this is them playing Yummy. I'm going to fast forward it a little bit because you already know what Yummy does by now. Like, we are testing, so you know, they wanted to try out if they special Marshmallow alongside the Hornet drones. So there were going to be 1 or 2 takebacks in this replay, but yeah. They summon, they grab the surprise. They summon Lollipo, the Metal Marcher play. Yep. Now they Prosperity for 3. They add Dominance Purge. And they set to impasse. So we draw for turn. We drew into Draco Standoff. This is a really good draw. And if you look at our engine, if you look at our hand, this hand can actually break the Yummy board. Like, outside of the Herald of Arclight, like, we already know about the 2 set cards. We already know about what Snatchy does. Thrust can add us, like, a lot of different cards. This can add Branded Fusion. This can add Soul Exchange. Yeah, I think we have enough to deal with Yummy. Now, let's tackle this out. We're going to activate the Disciples. We're going to try to use the effect to tribute. We tribute different Disciples. Disciples is going to try to pop the set card. That set card is the Purge. They try to snatch it, and this is our first misplay. We tried to activate the Dynamite Knight. There was no real reason to activate Dynamite Knight. Like, we could have just let the chain resolves, pop the Purge, And a new change just triggered the Dynamite Knight to just place a trap card. So that's misplay number 1. So we activate True Draco Standoff. They negate it with the Herald. We're going to activate Talents. We're going to draw 2. And they negated the activation with the Herald. And Standoff says you can only activate 1 True Draco Standoff per turn. So you can do True Draco Standoff again. We're going to Super Polymerization. We're going to take away the Snatchy and the Cupsyway. That only leaves the Surprise as their last defense mechanism, because this Snatchy is negated by Lollipop. And another note, Mud Dragon is a water type monster, same as Dynamite, so he cannot target these 2 cards for card effects. Now, you can make the argument of just going Draco Standoff, then Triple Thrust to search for the Soul Exchange, and then Soul Exchanging for Masterpiece. That is a play that you can do. That is kind of viable. And if you resolve that, then the Masterpiece is unaffected, which means this Akroki does nothing. Like, Akroki does target to destroy, so it can't do anything to Mud, it can't do anything to Dynamite. So they end up summoning from the deck because of Akroki's effect. And they shuffle back the Efua with the Lollipop. Now we're going to Thrust, and again, you can make the argument that we can just add Masterpiece and just play it that way. We're gonna try out something a little bit different. We're going to add Branded Fusion. So before we activate Branded Fusion, I kind of want to go to battle phase. Just get rid of the monsters. Now we're going to main phase 2. Now activate Branded Fusion. They're going to flip the Surprise, and Surprise is going to bring back the Snatchy. Well, he's going to bring back the Cupsy Yummy Way because they want us to interact with it, and we will interact with it, which means that they can use the Cupsy Yummy Way, bring back 2 other Yummies, and this is where Yummy actually starts becoming a good deck versus you. Like, now they are recovering in card advantage. Like, True Draco Stand Up, Masterpiece. We're going to Snatchy. We're going to Mirror Jade, and that is going to banish it. We already tributed. I don't recall if I extra tributed because of Disciples. But we're going to keep the Masterpiece. The reason we're keeping Masterpiece in our hand is because we want our opponent to interact with this Dynamite, and we want the Dynamite to place a True Draco trap card, and then we can summon Masterpiece on their turn. So end phase, we're going to Titanic Lad, and this is this is the reason the Branded engine is really good. Titanic Lad is going to summon the Dogmatika Ecclesia. The Dogmatika Ecclesia is going to add us the Fleur-de-Lis. And this is just another interaction against our opponent. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. He drew into an Imperm. They summon Marshmallow to grab back Surprise. That does trigger our trap card. They're going to try to Surprise to bounce back Mirror Jade and Apocalypse. And this is where Yummy just starts becoming strong as a deck. We are going to use the True Draco trap card to tribute. And we're going to tribute for Masterpiece. And this is another misplay. I should have tributed Mirror Jade with Standoff instead of Mirror Jade and Apocalypse. And this misplay matters a lot. You will notice why this misplay was very, very important. So they're going to Synchro. So Apocalypse is going to try to target the Lollipop. They're going to chain the Lollipop to tag out. We're going to chain Masterpiece to pop the Akroki, because if we don't, the Akroki is going to resolve its effect to pop the Masterpiece. Masterpiece is affected by spells. And this is why this misplay mattered, because if we were not affected by spells, we didn't have to worry about this Akroki at all. We didn't have to use Masterpiece effect, like, at all. And our opponent was just going to have a hard time dealing with this board, because if they don't swap out Akroki for Mignon, they're not going to run over our monsters. And Yomi doesn't have extra deck monsters that can just efficiently just get rid of this entire board easily. And that's not even talking about the fact that we have Fleur-de-Lis, and her effect. So yeah, they're going to summon all these cards. And they resolve Lollipop to Reborn 2, and they resolve the Lollipop tag out to Reborn 2. So that's a lot of monsters on board. Again, we're testing, so he's just choosing which ones they're going to be summoning from the other effect. And now this misplay matters, because this Mignon is turning all these Yomi monsters into really big behemoths. And if you know about our interaction with Fleur-de-Lis and Dogmatika Punishment, it needs monsters with enough attack in order for punishment to send, which would have been really good with Apocalypse. But yeah. So now we activate the Fleur-de-Lis. The Fleur-de-Lis is going to set the punishment. They're going to enter battle phase. So let me explain the other interaction that we could have done. So let's pretend this Apocalypse was on board, right? Dogmatika Branded, the Thunderbolt reads: the Dogmatika Trap can be activated this turn while your opponent controls a Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or a Link monster with 2500 or more attack. Snatchy is now 3600 because of Yomi sent Mignon. If we had Apocalypse on board, what we could have done is legally flip punishment, because they did control the monster with above 2500 attack, and then chain Apocalypse to pop the True Draco fighter, and that would have made it so it has the attack of every Yomi, and when the punishment resolves, you send Elder Entity Entis, popping like whatever Yomi you were targeting originally, which probably was going to be only going to be Copsy Yomi, because it legally had the attack to send, which was the Backcephalus that is in our extra deck. The Tri-Brigade. Which means the chain would resolve backwards. We would have popped the Copsy Yomi, and then the Entis would have popped the Mignon, and that made it so every Yomi could not run over any monster in our board. And yeah, like, if they cannot beat over this board, it's gonna be really hard for them in the next turn, because just dealing with a Masterpiece that like is just unaffected. Although, yeah, and it would have been unaffected by traps, so the Imperm would not have worked on it either. Also dealing with these two cards that are like untargetable. Although you could just swap out Mud Dragon for Light Attribute and make this untargetable as well as the two Dogmatika monsters. Would have been really strong. It would have been really, really cool. Also, just a random thing I wanted to bring up. Why does Ecclesia has the protection against monsters from the extra deck, but the Fleur-de-Lis does not? That's just a thought that is just jumped out of my head. But yeah, we're going to lose this duel. like the young monsters are just a little bit too big. We're not going to draw enough cards to just be able to break their board next turn. True Draco stand up can place Masterpiece in a spell and trap zone. That is really important if in the because of the Regenesis diagram. They get rid of it with Masterpiece, and yeah, this is game. We're not going to show more of this. So let's go back to the deck. This has been True Draco. Is this deck viable post Doom format? I actually do think this deck, under the right hands with the right pilot, can actually catch a lot of people off guard. This by no means is the perfect build of the deck. This is just an experimental build that I really wanted to try out. But I had really fun with it, and I know a lot of people don't like True Draco just because of the floodgate ability, just because of how mid-range this deck is. But there are really cool things like what I did with this version of the deck that can make it a lot of fun. Who knows? Maybe you can make a hybrid with the branded cards as well as like the Regenesis engine. Like Mirror J does have 2500 defense, so Great Brown has 25, and Eldlich has 25. So there is a world where you can play the Regenesis engine alongside all these cards. But I'm not gonna use my brain power for that. I'm just gonna leave it to the hands of you guys, the viewers, and the duelists, to figure that out. Alright, this has been it from me. I hope you found this informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.